the man who discovered gold in California died penniless. The man who owned the land where gold was found was ruined by the discovery. Of the 300,000 people who rushed to California dreaming of riches, most went home broke. But a handful of people got fantastically wealthy, and none of them mined a single ounce of gold. So here's the question that's going to sit underneath everything in this video. If the gold didn't make the gold finders rich, what did the money actually flow toward? This is Money Origins, where we trace how fortunes are really made, lost, and misunderstood throughout history. Quick note before we get into this. I'm drawing from well-documented historical accounts here, but the California gold rush happened over 170 years ago, so some details remain debated by historians. What I want to do today is walk through the gold rush not as a triumph story, but as a pattern. A pattern that starts with James Marshall's discovery in January 1848, runs through the destruction of the man who should have profited most, and ends somewhere you might not expect, with a lesson that keeps repeating in ways we're still not recognizing. January 24th, 1848. James Marshall is overseeing the construction of a sawmill on the American River in Coloma, California. The mill belongs to John Sutter, a Swiss-born landowner who's built a sprawling agricultural empire in the Sacramento Valley. Marshall spots something glinting in the water channel. He picks it up, tests it. Gold. And this is where the story goes wrong for both of them, immediately. Marshall and Sutter tried to keep the discovery quiet. They had a lumber business to run. Gold was a complication, not a plan. But word leaked within weeks, and what followed was something neither man could have prepared for. Sutter's land was overrun. Not by business partners, not by investors, by tens of thousands of strangers who simply showed up and started digging. They slaughtered his cattle for food. They occupied his fields. They stripped his property down to nothing. Sutter spent years in court trying to get compensation, and he died in 1880, broke, exhausted, still petitioning Congress for restitution he never received. Marshall fared worse in some ways. The man who literally found the gold couldn't hold a claim. Other miners pushed him off every site he tried to work. He drifted into alcoholism. California eventually granted him a small pension out of what seems like guilt, then revoked it. He died in 1885, penniless. The two men closest to the discovery were the two men most destroyed by it. By 1849, the gold rush was a full-scale migration. Around 300,000 people poured into California from across the United States and the world, from China, Chile, Europe, Australia. The 1849 gold rush reshaped global migration patterns almost overnight. Now, here's what tends to get left out of the romanticized version of gold rush history. The early arrivals, those who got there in late 1848, very early 1849, some of them did find gold. Surface deposits in rivers and streams could be worked with simple panning. For a brief window, a person with a tin pan and a strong back could pull real money out of the water. But that window closed fast. By mid-1849, the easy gold was gone. What remained required capital, hydraulic equipment, deep mining operations, organized labor. The individual prospector with a pan was already obsolete, and most of the 300,000 didn't know that until they arrived. The math was brutal. A miner might spend 4 to 6 months worth of savings just getting to California. Once there, the cost of basic supplies was staggering. Eggs could cost the equivalent of $25 each in today's money. A shovel might run $300. Many 49ers spent everything they had before they ever reached a riverbed. And the gold rush failure rate was enormous. The majority returned home with less than they started with, if they returned at all. So who did get rich from the California gold rush? The answer reveals a pattern that might be the most reliable rule in economic history. Samuel Brannan is the clearest example. He was a San Francisco merchant who reportedly confirmed the gold discovery by running through the streets waving a vial of gold dust. But Brannan wasn't heading to the mines. Before making that announcement, he'd quietly bought up every pickaxe, pan, and shovel in the region. He became one of California's first millionaires selling equipment to miners, not mining himself. Levi Strauss arrived in San Francisco in 1853 during the gold rush. He didn't pan for gold. He sold dry goods and eventually durable work pants, the kind miners needed because their clothing shredded in the fields. His company still exists. The miners who wore his pants are all anonymous. Bankers, steamship operators, boarding house owners, provisioners, these were the gold rush's real winners. They sold certainty to people chasing uncertainty. And their profits didn't depend on whether gold was actually found. They got paid either way. Now, you could argue that this is just basic supply and demand. Of course, suppliers profit during a shortage, and that's fair. But it's not just about supply and demand. It's about who bears the risk. The miners carried all of it. The suppliers carried almost none. That asymmetry is where the real wealth transfer happened. Here's where this stops being a history lesson. The California gold rush wasn't unique. It was the first clear template for something that keeps happening. Every time a new gold rush emerges, the same structure plays out. The prospectors take the risk. The people who sell the shovels collect the profit. The dot-com boom of the late 90s, most startups burned through cash and vanished. The companies selling server infrastructure and networking equipment did extremely well. The crypto surge, most individual traders lost money or broke even. The exchanges that processed every transaction took a fee on every single trade, win or lose. And right now, the AI boom, the companies building AI applications are in a fierce, uncertain race. But the companies selling the GPUs those applications run on are posting record revenues, regardless of which AI company wins. The pattern doesn't require a conspiracy. It's not even that the shovel sellers are smarter. It's structural. When a rush happens, demand for tools is guaranteed. Demand for the thing everyone's rushing toward is not. This doesn't mean every gold rush is a fraud, or that prospectors are foolish. Some miners did get rich. Some crypto traders made fortunes. Some AI startups will dominate entire industries. But the consistent, predictable money in 1849 and today flows to the infrastructure, not the excavation. James Marshall picked up a gold nugget from a streambed in 1848, and it destroyed him. John Sutter owned the land where American wealth was literally lying on the ground, and it destroyed him too. 300,000 people crossed a continent chasing the same promise, and most of them came home empty-handed. The gold was real. The opportunity was not. At least, not for the people digging. Worth keeping in mind, this isn't financial advice. But the next time you hear about a new rush, a new boom, a new once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, it might be worth asking a different question. Not where's the gold, but who's selling the shovels? If patterns like this interest you, how money moves in directions nobody expects, the next video traces the story of the most dangerous counterfeiter in history, Someone who didn't find money or sell tools for finding it. He just made his own. I'll see you there.